Hey Discord, it's your girl Sapphire. Hope y'all are doing well. I'm having a great day myself making this video. Today, we are going to be looking at bottlenecks, or why bottlenecks don't work the way you think they do, and why I hate the term bottleneck. So let's hop right into it. What is a bottleneck? Basically, a bottleneck is when one component of your computer limits the ability of another component of your computer to do the job to the best of its ability. And these bottlenecks are going to depend on three things. So often I'll be sitting in Discord, I'll be sitting in the build help channels, and I'll get asked, hey, Sapphire, does X bottleneck Y? Does an 11400F bottleneck a 3060 Ti? And I will invariably say it depends, and it depends on one of the three things you're going to see before you on the screen. It's going to depend on your monitor resolution, it's going to depend on your graphics settings, and it's going to depend on what specific game and software you are running. So I've done some testing on my own system to show you just what these bottlenecks look like. I've got a 12600K RX 5600 XT, both overclocked, plenty of decent RAM, so I won't be losing too much frames. Overall, should get a pretty nice testing experience with RivaTuner. So let's get right into it. Let's show you some numbers. First up, we're going to hop into Forza Horizon 5, and you're going to say, well, Sapphire, you've got a hell of a lot of CPU there, not too much GPU, you're going to be GPU bound. And at 1080p high ultra, at the settings I typically play, you would be right. You can see we're getting a nice respectable frame rate in the hundreds. As we cruise through the Horizon Festival, you're going to see that my GPU usage is at upper 90s, 95, 97, 98%. You're going to see that my CPU is chilling, not doing a whole heck of a lot. And yeah, I'm definitely limited by my graphics card. I could buy more graphics card here, and my CPU would be able to take the load. I could probably pop in an RTX 3070, and my CPU would take the load. I would see an increase in frame rate. But let's say I was a different type of gamer. Let's say I was the type of gamer who goes frame rate over all else. I don't care about quality, don't care how it looks. I'm going to play 720p, and I'm going to play on the very low preset. And we're going to see here, aside from my frame rate having skyrocketed, we're going to see that my GPU usage is now in the low 70s, 80s. It's dropped a lot. And so now, if I was to upgrade my GPU, I wouldn't see any difference because I am CPU bound. And that's even though my CPU is only chilling at like 20%. You can see the whole CPU isn't doing much, but you can also see that the specific threads that I've got broken down here are up above 50-60% on the render thread consistently. And obviously RivaTuner isn't all that good at understanding hyper-thread CPUs, but if you're seeing 50 or 60% all the time on one or two, three, maybe four of these threads, it's a pretty safe bet that your game is loading up those cores, and that it's using that part of the CPU to render the game. So even though the whole CPU is not being used, you can still be limited by that part. And a similar thing would be what you're seeing before you in Left 4 Dead 2 here. Now Left 4 Dead is a much more CPU heavy game. It's not so hard on the graphics card. So because there's less load on the graphics card, the CPU's got to push more frames to keep up. And in this case, the CPU is not keeping up, despite me getting a very respectable frame rate in the upper 200s. We are playing at 1080p maxed out, and the GPU is still barely being utilized. It's not doing much work at all. And the CPU on that one render thread, Left 4 Dead is a pretty single-threaded game, but so as I shoot these guys, that one thread is giving me everything it's got to push this frame rate. So if I upgrade my GPU, I wouldn't see any difference here, and I could get more frames out of a better CPU or more overclocking, but of course we're getting 300 frames, so I don't think that's really terribly necessary here. Now it's not just that, we've looked at the monitor resolution, we've looked at the settings, we've looked at even the specific game, but sometimes it gets even more specific than that. Sometimes we've got specific game situations or game modes. And what better to show that with than Euro Truck Simulator? You can see we're flying down the highways of Austria here in the rain, and we're getting a good frame rate. We're doing perfectly fine for this game, but the GPU's not getting utilized much. We are very CPU bound in this situation. Suppose, later that night, I head over to France, right? I'm driving into beautiful, sunny Dijon, France. And whoa, what do you know? Suddenly my GPU is getting 95% utilized. Suddenly, in a different part of the map, doing a different thing, we are GPU bound. And now if I had a better graphics card, I would see more frames in this area, but not the other area. So it does depend, of course, on what you're doing with the software as well. So this should go to show you the answer to does X bottleneck Y is it depends, and despite me having what seems like a pretty CPU heavy spec, I've managed to be CPU bound in 3 of these 4 tests. Now, if you want to know exactly if, say, your 11400F bottlenecks your 3060 Ti, you're going to want to look for benchmarks for the specific game, settings, resolution, whatever have you that you want to try that you're going to be using, or you can hop into discord.gg/thetech, and one of our build helpers will be able to give you some advice, give you a good idea of whether your spec is going to work. So yeah, thank you for watching. Hope this tells you more about what exactly you're looking for in terms of bottlenecks. Yeah, make sure to drop a like, maybe look at some of my other content if you're interested, and have a good day. See y'all.